We are at a point right now where maybe there is no shared vision for the Jewish community. We're very divided. But we still need to listen to one another. And perhaps a new shared vision will come. But it's bigger than just the Jewish community. It is the national community. We cannot just go through the world and unfriend, the new word, unfriend everyone. I never unfriend. I have friends from, on social media from grade school. And some of their ideas, some of them, I don't know what they were thinking in grade school, but whatever they're thinking now is, I'm not wild about what they're thinking. It doesn't show me a great, deep understanding of the world, but I don't unfriend them. I'm always polite because I want to know what they're thinking. You can go out to dinner with your uncle whose ideas are, bother you, but you could build a little trust that down the line, you may have a conversation. You may not change that person. And I don't even know if that can be your goal at this moment. But we need to keep talking. And from that grows trust and grows consensus.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
Welcome, everyone, to the Jew Function. I'm Leo. This is Seth.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And we are joined today by a fabulous guest, which I was looking forward to having on the show. We actually had someone from Moment Magazine a few weeks ago, right? Tom Gelton. And today I guess we did something good because we got promoted to the editor-in-chief of and CEO of Moment Magazine, one of the, I think it's one of the most respected magazines, Jewish media platforms, actually, and has a rich history. Started in the 70s by Elie Wiesel, right? That's
Elie Wiesel and Leonard Fine, 1975.
1975, exactly. And so, and it's a serious magazine. It's tackling big issues, and obviously anti-Semitism, which is very close to our hearts, but not only Israel, culture, a lot of great stories, and I'm very happy to have Nadine here because when we Googled you, we found that you believe in building bridges and bridging the divide rather than deepening it, and this is it's very close to what we're trying to do here on the Jew Function, bring people together because we believe that there's that's where the answer lies.
Magic happens. That's
exactly.
Not a non-predictable, emergent magic happens when we come together.
Exactly. So if you're here, for the first time, not you personally, but anyone else listening, please do listen to the first season, first 22 episodes. It follows the entire Jewish history. We try to be brief, but it covers everything, and it really
from
lays
Abraham
out
to the modern times.
Yeah, from Abraham to today, and we try to really make the case for why is there anti-Semitism, what patterns in history, Jewish history can teach us about anti-Semitism, what triggers it. Let's say, what do the Jewish sages, the Kabbalists, have had to say about it, and what even modern findings from network science, for example, can tell us about this persistent phenomenon. So we want to just jump right in, Nadine, and ask you, why are you even doing what you're doing? Why are you writing about anti-Semitism? Is there good money in it? What's the story?
Oh yeah, there's tons of money in it. It's a great question.
Finally said.
Finally,
figured it out.
Tons of money in nonprofit journalism.
So what got you into this? Like what journalism, maybe just a little bit, because we're really curious to learn about you as a person, not just as someone with an opinion.
I'm a journalist, and I've been a journalist now for decades, but I have so many interests and I've done so many things. So I'm not somebody who had any kind of linear path. And, I'm an artist and a writer, and I was a political scientist and I taught. So many things have gotten me here, but mostly because I grew up in Deal, New Jersey, and my mom was a executive director of the Jewish Community Center. And my dad was a scientist, and they had very different ways of looking at the world, which was fascinating. So those are things I think a lot about today. And I came to Moment really almost by accident. And
No accidents.
Go ahead.
There are no accidents.
There are no accidents? Okay, well, you and I are going to maybe disagree on that in a little bit. But I happened to have just finished a book I had written on spiritual bathing, like looking at spiritual bathing from a Jewish tradition and traditions all over the world. And I was a single mom, and I decided to actually just looked in the newspaper, and back, it was still 20 years ago, one looked in the newspaper and randomly saw that Moment was looking for a managing editor, and became that editor, and ended up taking over Moment. And it was really a whole fascinating experience. And it was a very different era. This was 22 years ago, 2003 and 2004. And, I wasn't thinking about anti-Semitism in the same way that we were thinking about anti-Semitism today. And in fact, I came up at a time where there was incredible stability, and in the United States and in many countries, where I didn't really experience anti-Semitism. Once, when we were driving to Mexico in my Polara Dodge station wagon, 4 kids and 2
From
parents.
Jersey?
From Jersey.
Nice.
Yeah. Well,
that says something about your parents.
Yeah. So we all got in the car, and we had a station wagon with no car seats for the kids, and no seat belts, by the way. And we all get in there, and we had our dog with us, and we were pulling a trailer, and we were driving across Pennsylvania, and the trailer had a flat tire, and a man came to help us, and he was nice, and he helped my dad. And then while he was talking to my dad, he used the expression "Jew him down," because he was telling my dad to go to the next town and buy a tire, but be sure to Jew him down. And my dad was just freaked out, and he just got right back in the car and said, "We have to leave right now." And he left the man just standing there on the road, and we drove away. And he said he used the expression "Jew him down," and that was our experience of anti-Semitism. And it did impact my father a lot, and I thought about that for years. But it was almost just not something I thought about. In 2014, at Moment, we spent many months doing a big question project. We do these big symposiums, and we talk to people from across the spectrum, because I really believe, and I think you do too, that we have to really listen and be curious what other people are thinking, what other informed people are thinking. So we put together this symposium on anti-Semitism and asked whether it was still a problem. And it was so fascinating, because in 2014, generally the consensus was that it was becoming a problem in Europe, but it wasn't a problem in the United States. Now, there were some outliers, David Mamet, I'm sure both of you, but the vast majority of informed people that we spoke to felt that way. Roll up to 2016, things started changing very dramatically. And I think first I look at July 2nd, 2016 as being a very important day, because it's the day that Donald Trump is tweeting that tweet about Hillary Clinton. And he's using really scary, dangerous, caricatures of Jews. And he's putting this into the mainstream, and he's running for president. So he's an important person. And that moment opens up a portal on the right to allow anti-Semitism. It's been sitting there all these years, because as we know, anti-Semitism is always there. It's always on the fringes. And I see you both nod. I see you nodding, and it's Leo. And it never goes away, but it often goes out of the mainstream. But at that moment, the right, which was already posed to come back in this great resurgence, which we've seen, opened up the door to anti-Semitism right into the mainstream. Then fast forward up to 2023, October 14th. Now, this is a week after October 7th, you remember the attack on a hospital, where it was automatically assumed that Israel was behind that. And that coverage and that opened up, again, a whole new portal for the anti-Semitism that had been on the left to come into the mainstream. And for the first time in generations, what we've seen is this confluence of these two kinds of anti-Semitism. And there's so many kinds, and each one of them, I don't want to be, because I believe in complexity and I don't mean to simplify it, but basically these two kinds of streams of anti-Semitism coming into the mainstream and really beginning to, infect mainstream society. And that's what we're dealing with now. That's what we have, here now today in 2026. If that gives you a little overview here.
No, this is it's a great overview, and I'm curious. Are you having lived through all of this and seeing the trajectory? When you close your eyes, can you imagine a world without anti-Semitism? Or
yes.
Oh, you can. Okay, that's good.
Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say before we get, that's a great question. And it's a really good question. Thank you so much for asking that. I just want to say that Moment did this amazing issue, by the way, which is our 50th anniversary issue this summer. And as part of it, we did a survey of like a lot of people in our world, because you can't really say readers, people watch our programs, there's some people on social media. And the vast majority, it was amazing, the majority of Jews in the United States felt that anti-Semitism was a huge problem and were terrified. So I'll look at I have to find the actual numbers here for you. Can I imagine? Yes. How could I not imagine? I have lived through a few decades where anti-Semitism was not a dominant factor in the lives of many Americans, most American Jews, where American Jews actually flourished in the last 50 years. I mean, this has been an amazing time.
Nadine, what do you mean by how did they flourish, and in what way did they flourish in a Jewish way?
What a great question too. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. And I did this piece in the summer called Time Traveling with Moment. And I looked at all the different things that how Judaism has really, what's happened in the last 50 years and things we couldn't have imagined. Here, I'm going to find this because I put it out. First of all, when I was coming up, I mean, there are so many now portals into Judaism. American Judaism is so revitalized. There are so many schools, Jewish day schools, and there are so many different programs, learning new languages, learning Hebrew, learning Yiddish, learning Latino. The American Jewish community couldn't be more rich on a whole level. I mean, sometimes I feel like it's over.
I don't know if I'm in a rabbit hole. I don't see any of it. And so I'm pretty proud Jew, active Jew. I don't know any of the things you're talking about.
Oh my gosh. So one of the things that I get to do as editor-in-chief of Moment is be in lots of different bubbles. And I make a real effort to be listening and curious. And I have I have a range of people in my family, in my life, and I go all over. And it's such a rich community. I mean, there are so many ways to connect spiritually with Judaism. And there are so many, I find it to be incredible. And so many people I know are, they get adult bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. They are studying, they are doing Talmud, they're doing online programs. There's so many there's almost too many educational, adult learning, kids learning, preschools. So anyways, this is a very rich world, and it changes. It depends on where you are again in the Jewish world, but certainly in where you are, I think there is, because I'm also from Jersey, there's a lot of variety, and a lot of it's online. Another huge change is that when I was coming up, there was like this huge fear of assimilation. And I feel like that assimilation really hasn't happened. There's so much Jewish identity. So many more people are excited about their Jewish identity. And this goes hand in hand with intermarriage. There was this huge fear of intermarriage. So there is intermarriage, but a lot of that intermarriage really changed. It's no longer a binary choice. If your child marries somebody who's not Jewish, doesn't mean that they're disappearing from the Jewish world or that your grandchildren are disappearing from the Jewish world. They're not. They're really, they're going to preschool, Jewish preschools. They're being raised Jewish. So there's a lot of that. There's, I want to say there's a huge amount of women now. I mean, there's so many more different kinds of others who are now included in community. I mean, women are spiritually included. I just finished a big story on LGBTQ plus in the Orthodox world and in many corners of the Orthodox world. And I know you've talked to Miriam Kabakov.
Right.
There's a growing acceptance of LGBTQ plus and the fact that this is a natural human behavior. I mean, there's, people of color. People of color have now been embraced by the Jewish community and are enriching it. And so are the Sephardic and the Mizrahi worlds that are now like, when I was coming up, they were kind of sidelined. They were their own worlds. And now these are enriching mainstream Judaism in the United States and around the world. And that's very exciting.
So the question is, I think the next question after that you paint that beautiful picture, is what is the thread? What connects all those different Jews in your mind? Because it's easy to say, things like, well, the Jewish identity, Israel, but what is it? Like, even some like identity, what is that?
A great question. I feel like, first of all, the idea that there has to be one thread is also an opinion.
Well, any thread, we're open.
Yeah, but Judaism is such a vast. It's so broad. It has so much breadth. There's so much text. There's so much interpretation. There's so much There's so many stories. There's so much midrash. There's Judaism for there. Like, and I think you could say this. I don't know if any religion has as much is as rich as Judaism. Judaism has been around longer than many. But it has gone through these incredible phases. So I feel like there's so much of it, and I feel people pull together what it is. I think there's very different identities about what it means to be a Jew. I see like these kind of two major camps. One is continuity. Like there are many people, and you'll see this in a lot of parts of the Orthodox community, where really it's about continuity. It's about the same values, whatever those values have been decided upon by that community, because they vary from community to community. And then there are people who are, who are the adopters, and that's how we got modern Orthodoxy, and that's how we got denominations, more liberal denominations, and that's how also Judaism has evolved over centuries. It's not just a modern phenomena. It's how we got the whole rabbinical tradition, that comes out of and actually I did a book, and one of the people in the book was Shulamit, queen, I'm blanking on her name, Salome Alexandra, and I'm blanking on her Hebrew name. And she was she was a queen, basically, and she was the second to last monarch of the Jewish people. And she really helped keep the Jews together at that last moment. And then her sons took over when she died. And their divisions helped the Romans to take over and to win. And that led to, and it was all involved in the bigger, there were the Sadducees and the Pharisees controversy. But anyways, this leads to rabbinical Judaism, and that's an evolution. So Judaism has evolved over years, but I basically see these two different worlds. And I think today, there's also lots and lots of Jews who feel like they're pulled together, like in the liberal world, about tikkun olam, that's what they do. And I think that both sides need to recognize both of these forces within Judaism need to learn about the other, and they don't.
So these two forces in your mind are, on one side?
So there's the same, I feel like these are the perennial forces, which is, let's hold on to the past as we interpret it right today, and let's adapt.
Conservatives, traditionalists, that sort of.
Yeah, but it's all it's not like there's one tradition and there's one kind of conservatism.
Okay.
And then there's the people who are, we got to evolve. We got to keep moving. We have to adapt Judaism for the future. And I feel like both of those, we see those today in the United States, and we see them kind of at loggerheads, and that we need to actually, each one of us, wherever we stand on this, we need to understand the other side better. And, because there's value to both.
At each point in history, it's like at one point we're looking through a microscope at like 100 times. Mm-hmm. And then you go down another 50 years, another 100 years in time, and now we're looking at it 1,000 times. Like things keep differentiating, right? Even within, like you said, within conservative, it's not just one mass, and on the other side, it's not just one mass. There's more and more differentiation as we go through time. Like our people keeps differentiating more and more and more, right? We used to be way more tribal, way more. You don't think so?
I want to just push back a little bit on that and just say that Judaism has always been decentralized, and historically, except, I mean, we don't know really what it was like back in biblical times. But there's always been a gazillion different points of view. Rabbis don't agree. Each rabbi has had his and now his or her own ideas. And so I feel like there's something very, it is one of the strengths of Judaism, is that this decentralized nature. So there's always been a huge amount of variety, even if we don't look back at the history and we can't see it. But I think we can see it even when we look at the Talmud. I mean, that's one of the most incredible things about Judaism, is that we have this record of disagreement, of mostly civil disagreement. And we see that that's part of our culture.
So I think the way you described the two forces, it harkens back to this claim that we make often on this show, and then that is that a Jew is someone who's able to hold on to two opposites, and it doesn't mean that I have to live in both. I may live in one side, but I can hold the other. I can see the other, and that's a quality that we sometimes take for granted. But it's not so easy for other people. I'm not saying necessarily non-Jews by identity, right? As we talk here on the show about Jewishness being a different quality, not something written in your passport. But that ability to hold on to opposites, to see the other side, as it were, as you said, to hold the other perspective, the other point of view. Even if I vehemently disagree, I can sort of see you, and in many ways, I think the strength of Jews was the ability to have that, and then be able to sit down around the Shabbat table, or around a meal, and be together. Yes. And the question is, are you seeing more of this now or less? Because there's a sense that the world is becoming more and more individualized, and that quality is praised sometimes at the expense of the collective quality. It scares people. They're not sure about it. They think it's something from the past. Certainly non-Jews it's hard for them to see, if we're going this way, then that way is bad. But for Jews, are you seeing that Jews are able to keep that togetherness, or are those divisions and pursuit of individualism pushing us too far apart to make us brittle?
It's a very important point. I mean, that to be able to embrace complexity and to remain curious is like an incredible human challenge. Our brains seem to be, and not just Jewish brains, all brains, we all seem to, our brains want simple narratives, simple stories. And one of the things that I think your point is so strong is that there is part of the Jewish tradition that pushes back against that simple story and that has this diversity of thought. But there are many, many people within the Jewish world who've never maybe embraced all of that. But there has been that tradition, certainly among the elite and certainly among, at least we know rabbinical tradition. So I think today we're seeing, the human brain interacting with so much information, so many sources of media. I mean, there's media for everybody. We're no longer, all drinking from the same trough of news. We've been able to, we're separated. We're no longer, we have AI. We have to be very careful about what news we get, and not just news, but like images. We have to look at everything. It requires a high level of critical thinking to be able to navigate today's world. And I feel like right at this particular moment, we're in a very dangerous point, not just for the Jewish community, but for everyone, because we're navigating a new level of technology. We're navigating media world that's changed. We don't really know what to trust and what not to trust. We often put our trust into places and people who we might not. We get very excited by simple stories which don't really help move the world forward. And we need to be really focusing on what can move the world forward in a positive way.
So help us out, and not just us, people who are listening. What can people trust? What's the thing that binds us? If everything is becoming more polarized just by, Seth and I, we call it a natural evolution of, we call it the will to receive, or the ego that desires more and more pleasure for itself at the expense usually of anything and everything. If I can get away with it, usually I do it. There's always a calculation, but something has to hold us together. Otherwise, you just drift into space. There's nothing left. What is holding people together, or what should hold us together? And I'm thinking specifically, we oftentimes look at one point in history, for example, the temple. Right, so Jews went all the way. They came out of Egypt. They had their tribes, very different tribes. One is the symbol of Dan is the snake. The symbol of Judah is the lion. Two opposite animals, and yet they all live together in this tapestry, which is Israel. But somehow they were able to unite around this one ideal of the temple. So even though there was all these different approaches and opinions and disagreements and whatnot, there was always something that brought people together.
And then that very, very idea broke apart with the Sadducees and the Pharisees.
Correct.
And was no longer the idea of the time. So it's so true. A lot of it depends on leadership, having leaders who can help provide vision but also be very grounded. And I think that's a very important point. I just want to say that I feel like right now I spend my whole life toiling in the fields of moment. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is a moment really is a community in a place which is an island of sanity in an increasingly unruddered world. And really where we're trying to stay grounded, be calm, listen to voices, and try and look at history and keep stay curious and learn. That is what all of us can do right now, is I mean, I feel like getting into a place of panic never helps. Staying calm and trying to understand and listening, because there are points. We are at a point right now where maybe there is no shared vision for the Jewish community. We're very divided. But we still need to listen to one another. And perhaps a new shared vision will come. But it's bigger than just the Jewish community. It is the national community. It's a human.
It's a human situation. We're a global community now.
We need to come up with a way to. I mean, we just saw, I want to say, 5 decades of relatively international consensus, where diplomacy has generally worked, not always, where I like to quote George Shultz, the former Secretary of State, that trust is the coin of the realm. If you don't talk to people and you don't communicate, you can't build trust. I did a book with Justice Ginsburg right before she died, and one of the stories that we talk about in the book is her friendship with Scalia. Now, Scalia and Justice Ginsburg could not have more divergent legal or theological ideas about the world. These are very, very different people. But they found friendship over music, over food, over personal friendship. And it didn't change Justice Ginsburg's legal, decisions. And it didn't change Scalia's legal decisions. But it left open a place for conversation. And I feel like we need to maintain that. We cannot just go through the world and unfriend, the new word, unfriend everyone. I never unfriend. I have friends from, on social media from grade school. And some of their ideas, some of them, I don't know what they were thinking in grade school, but whatever they're thinking now is, I'm not wild about what they're thinking. It doesn't show me a great deep understanding of the world, but I don't unfriend them. I'm always polite because I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know what other people are thinking. So then I know how to respond to them. Then I know how to have a conversation. And if you can build just a little bit of trust, you can go out to dinner with your uncle whose ideas are, bother you, but you can build a little trust that down the line, you may have a conversation. You may not change that person. And I don't even know if that can be your goal at this moment, but we need to keep talking. And from that grows trust and grows consensus eventually.
Nadine, you mentioned the goal. So we have to also understand what is our goal in this whole thing. Because because that will determine if the goal is that we can all sit at the Seder table in harmony, so there's a certain behavior that can lead to that. If our goal is we want to usher in the brotherhood of man, it's not only done just by going out to dinner. Like there's a lot of bad dudes out there and tough guys and all kind of stuff, and you need a variety of strategies. Depending on what the goal is. It seems like from your experience of how the Jewish people is doing now, when they're resuscitating someone, they push on the chest, and when you come up, like everything flows back into the empty spaces, and you push it out and it flows back into the empty spaces. So after the whole World War II situation of like squeezing everything out of the Jewish people that could be squeezed out, and then we have these decades of calm.
Yeah.
What?
It's calm expansion, it's
calm
this.
expansion. Yeah. So the blood flows back in, and it flows back in to all of these new channels and new ways. And there's different kinds of freedom, and there's the internet. And if I'm the only gay person in my community, I could find thousands now, not only in my community, but around the world. Before I stayed in my, I couldn't let anybody know, right? Because I didn't have any way to communicate with anybody. Now, if I'm into, I don't know, what was the guy in, Winkler, he wrote some great stuff. He was, I don't know if you know him, he was in the Reconstruction movement for what, Gershom Winkler, maybe? I don't know. He
yes,
grew,
Christian Winkler. I think he's beyond Reconstruction. He's independent.
I don't know
Way
what he was,
beyond
but I remember
Reconstruction.
reading some of his books
He's
years
included.
ago.
We often we've interviewed him many times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't read his book in The Way of the Boundary Crosser. I read probably 20 years ago or more, but he grew up Orthodox. And then he found all of this kind of earth wisdom stuff and found it all in the, so you can find then a community back, 30, 40 years ago, there was no way to find that. So there's this process, and it's our historical process. We see it over and over again. They squeeze the life out of us. And then when the pressure comes out, the life force flows back out into new and beautiful ways, like you explained about all these different things that are happening with day schools and with in the Mizrahi community and music and LGBTQ and all the different areas. Okay, so here's what I want to get to when we think about the goal of the Jewish people. Like, what are we aiming towards, right? It's more than just being able to sit at the Seder table together. The question is, or the direction, if we can look at ourselves and not look at the world for a minute, with all of this expansion in the Jewish community, what are we missing that the anti-Semitism is coming back again? Do we need to now then go through another cycle of squeezing it all out of the Jews again? And then after that, we'll have this wonderful expansion again. Is there something within our power to do as we're expanding out into the world, as we're expanding out in all of these beautiful ways, in culture, in media, in our personal spiritual lives, in our healing of our traumas, our collective traumas, our personal traumas? Is there something we can do that let's even say that the anti-Semitism is like a wave. And if we're a good surfer, we can manage the forces. If we are not prepared and in shape and able to have the conversations and able to defend ourselves and then the wave crashes us. So the two things, because I tried to find a few angles in with you, but you are seriously optimistic about where we're going and you have a lot of experience. So I'm trying to find what is the vision for the Jewish people and what is in our power to do that we maybe missed, or maybe now is the time to strike while the iron is hot when we see the anti-Semitism coming from both sides. What is in our power to do?
Great. And again, that's very thoughtful, everything you just said. Thank you. First of all, we need to stay calm, and we need to remember that we're not just defined by anti-Semitism, and we have this incredible rich culture. And so I feel like that's one thing that's really important. Another thing we need to do is we need to reach out. We have something called the Wide River Project, and a few of us, Eric K. Ward, Suzanne Borden, and I work on this project, and we dive into the complexity of the Black-Jewish relationship in the United States, and in the hopes of understanding its complexity, because it's very complex, and building it. And why do we do this? Because I believe that some of this is not like, what can we do? It's what can society do? Jews and all others, minorities, do much better, in my opinion, and I understand that there's other opinions about this, when there's a stable democratic government, and which is tolerant, empathetic. And right now, what we have is a period where governments are more chaotic. And we had, for a number of years, for those decades that we were talking about it, a relatively kind of international political government consensus where things were basically the same coming out of World War II, as you described. And now we're in a new era. And it's not clear to me that what this is this a completely new era? Is this an aberration? We don't really know that yet. I know a lot of us are all saying that, and we've seen dramatic changes. We have players like Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is, an incredibly dangerous, destabilizing factor in the world, person in the world. We have AI, we have the internet. There are a lot of destabilizing factors. So one of the things that we have to think about is how do we rebuild a stable international kind of political world again.
I want to on that point, because I find that this is a good theory, but the average person listening to this thing, he's not building international stable. The person listening to the show is not building international relations. Is not even building a stable government. He gets up, he does his thing, and he gets back home trying to be with his family. Most people live life in a very small circle, right? And not everybody has your experience and just the vastness and the richness. Bruce Springsteen and Justice Ginsburg and Mayan healers. You have a very unique way of even perceiving the world, right? You also have a way of looking at yourself from the side. This is very unusual. Most people don't have that. And so the average person who doesn't have the ability to make those vast changes, geopolitical changes, what can they focus on in their smaller sphere? What do I do? I don't have that.
I think everybody can think about the international order, and everybody can think about, one of my grandfathers, when he came to the United States, he was part of the workman's circle. That gave him a connection. He read the foreword. He only, in Yiddish. It gave him a connection to a bigger world. My mother was president of everything. My mother was president of all. My mother was just one of those people where she was just a regular person, but she was president of Hadassah and president of, AAUW, American Association for University Women, and president. You can be, anybody can get involved in civil organizations. But what can we do on a personal level? One is stay calm. I feel like that's really important.
I feel it too, because
really important.
You've been sending this wave since we started, so I like it.
We're not. I can't say we still do have free press. We still have many. I'm just speaking for the United States. I do not think that all of our democratic institutions have been paralyzed yet. So it's very complicated times. I'm not saying they're not, but I do feel like there's hope for that. But I think to stay calm. And what are you dealing with? You're dealing with people in your own world, in your family, and your siblings, and their different points of view. And what you can do at home is continue to have civil relationships with those people, and to and also to try to stay as informed as possible, and to remember, it's so easy because we're on, all of us are online, we're on social media, not all of us, but many of us are on social media. It's so easy to react. It's so easy to just go, oh my God, I can't believe that person said that. I'm gonna say this and say that, and just don't do that.
Okay, so you brought up a great point. We have, by the way, we have a name for people like you. We call them points in the heart. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Point in the heart. The heart is the seat of desires. We can look at it this way, not the muscle pump, right? But just the conceptual heart. And those are usually egoistic. They're self-centered. They look at them, as we said originally. This, what can I get out of this? But some people have a point in the heart. There's like one desire that's different, that's able to look at the other desires from a different direction and wants something a little higher. And by the way, it's not everybody has it, but in most people, it's buried really deep. And in some unique individuals, it's more on the surface and it kind of shines more. And in you, for example, it's very clear that you have that desire for something higher. You're able to even look at that and say, you should, I'm sure you're probably saying it to yourself as well. Yeah, you should be calm. You should don't unfriend this person, stay in good connection, build a bridge, right? You have this inner dialogue. You're thinking about thinking. And this is very, again, unusual. Mm-hmm. The question is, how will a regular person, maybe someone who is not as developed in his desires, where will they get the strength to do that? To say to someone, be calm when they're panicking. I don't know. It's like when you say someone who's depressed, just be happy.
I know you're saying that I'm unique in some way, and I would have to push back and say that every one of us is unique. Every single person comes to be who we are at this moment from our own.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean unique. No, everybody's unique. No. Everybody's unique as a snowflake. I'm saying unique in that quality. That quality, we don't find it in everybody. I'm telling you, we're talking to a lot of people, and although I can find uniqueness in everyone, I'm talking about that particular uniqueness, right? That attitude. That attitude is not something that everybody has. People are much easier.
Empathy is usually important.
Okay.
And every single person is capable. I know it's hard. I know we live in a world where there's many narcissists, and we have so many different ways of describing people who don't have empathy. But empathy remains a huge motivator, a human motivator on all levels. And every person can have increased, we can all work on our empathy, every single one of us.
How do you get that strength? I feel like we have to maybe, create like support groups, have some,
I think that's a great idea. We do need support in having empathy. I mean, right now, tons of people have therapists. We're living in a time where, the individual, and we're going to go back to something that you were saying an hour ago, or 40 minutes ago, which is that, it's about the individual and not about the community as much. We are all doing what we think is best for us. Maybe we all did on some level, but we are now living in an era where that's part of our culture, deeply, deeply embedded in our culture. But we all need to be, so there's this whole kind of back and forth between community and individual, and where do we find that balance? Having a support group, having a community. I am so lucky because I have an incredible community of brilliant people with great hearts who I get to work with every day. And I just want to say, the most amazing people in the world are the people who are really smart and really kind. Those are the human beings that we want to be with. And those are the kinds of people I want to be with. So I have a community, and I know that in that sense, I'm really lucky. And the two of you have a community also that you've built for this kind of conversations, and you have each other, which is also fabulous. And I know a lot of people don't have that. So how do we find community? And there are many places in the Jewish world and beyond to find community.
Okay, so now I want to go a step further. Okay, because I think we all agree that there is today also digitally you can find your people, as you say, your kind. Question is, and that becomes more, especially again, I live in Israel, much smaller. There's not so much, there's not that many ways out. Sometimes the community is the people around you, and you have to sort of work with it. And the question is, how do you deal with the discomfort of community? Because I feel like that's the thing that people today are missing: the ability to make tolerate some discomfort and endure that little bit of, I have to make some room for someone else. I have to be considerate. I have to think of someone other than myself. These are, it's like, what are you talking about? It's and again, and that's a very Jewish thing: the ability to entertain these two sides. Yes, you're a unique individual. and yet you have to, make some room for others as well, and that takes work. That doesn't come naturally. Only
And I
in
think it
family.
happens with every congregation, every family, every congregation. We have to find a balance. I just did this story on LGBTQ plus in the Orthodox community. Well, rabbis in Orthodox synagogues where they're making room for LGBTQ plus to be have to find a balance between supporting the individual, somebody, for example, who's transgender, and also supporting the community. And we have to do that in our families. And, there's a lot of negative, there's a reason why have there's more of a spectrum, that there's more individualism. I mean, I just want to say that there was the, eras where families were everything and you were trapped in your family. And it's fabulous to not only be trapped in families, to be able to have, hey, I want to go do something on my own, which was very hard for everyone, men and women, to do. There was no freedom in that way. And we need we're dealing with all this freedom. And I think we've forgotten where we came from. And we forget that there's this necessary balance and that all of us have to make, well, I don't like my marriage today. I can move on, or I can decide, well, historically, marriages have great days and they have bad days, and they have great years and they have bad years, and I'm going to continue on. Or I don't like my parent right now, and I can just disown my parent, which is happening more and more, or I can say, well, my parent is a human being and has made mistakes, and I can move on and I can forgive. And forgiving, maybe forgiving is what we're really getting at. And let me tell you a little story about forgiving.
Please.
So, go ahead. Go ahead. You want to say
No, I
something?
said, please tell us.
So I think what forgiving is, that little element, and it's one that's very connected with religion, but it's bigger than religion. But my dad was a really complicated guy, and looking back, he was on the spectrum, but we didn't have any language for that when I was coming up, and I didn't have a great relationship with him. But when he got older and he was in his 90s, he, for a variety of reasons, just transformed and became the most wonderful human being. I'm working on a book about this, and at a certain point, I could have said, well, I'm not going to forgive you for what you were when you were a young man, but why not? But why not embrace the change and the love and move on? For me, it was such a great blessing, because then I got to have my dad died at 99.9 a few years ago. And I got to have these incredible years with my father. And that's because I could forgive him and I could move on. And we all need to do that.
I think we have a theory. I mean, it's not ours. We were just propagating it. That, I'll also tell a little story. When I came to America, I was born in Israel, and then when I moved to the U.S., I had a feeling that I was talking to people. I went to school here. I was a little older than the average student. They were all like 17, 18. I was already going.
You'd been in the IDF or something, yeah.
Well, I already lived half a life,
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't really the point. The point was that I was talking to them, and a lot of them were like, "Where are you from?" Well, I grew up, I grew up in, in Atlanta, and I moved to New York, and I grew up here, and I came there, and I used to, work here, and then it didn't work out, so I left. I moved, I went from the West Coast to the East Coast. It was always those stories of, okay, something doesn't work out, I'll just leave. I can just relocate. I have options. I don't like this job. I can move to another state. I don't like the way people talk here. I'll go to somewhere else. And I feel the Jews throughout history were always like forced to stay together. Whenever we try to assimilate or try to too much to sort of leave our ideal, eventually circumstances pushed us back together. We had no choice but to endure each other's differences, and that gave us that resilience. And I feel like the last few decades, as you said, that area of extension, as Seth was saying, it just kind of weakened this. We forgot about this thing that needs to happen when you bring people together. When you bring a bunch of egoists together, ultimately you'll have to, if you share the same interests, then okay, everything is fine. But when the interests change, someone will have to make some concessions. And, so what would make us concede to each other?
I can't say that. I can't look back at history and say the same thing that I don't see the same thing you're seeing. I see that
we have hundreds of examples, by the way, from history.
There's so many examples of Jews fighting Jews and Jews disagreeing and Jews destabilizing and Jews not sharing the same values and Jews, excommunicating Spinoza and Jews being afraid of ideas and Jews doing.
Right. And what happened? And what happens when Jews reach a head in their disagreement? When it gets so crazy, what happens? Boom, pogrom, expulsion, almost to the letter. We have hundreds of.
I feel like I just don't. I know. I understand what you're saying, but I also can't even say where we are today. I feel like there's a lot of assumptions being made about where we are as a Jewish community, certainly in the United States and around the world. I think you could equally look, and I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning, at the Jewish world today and say it is stronger than ever. It is, despite the fact that we are facing anti-Semitism, which may not, which may be, yeah, we are, but the Jewish community is more diverse, more strong, really. I just don't, I can't say that.
Can we say that? Can we say that?
I can't say that the anti-Semitism we're facing also isn't going to go away when things stabilize in the United States a little bit more, because right now we're in a very chaotic period. I can't say that. I don't know.
We're in a global village. It's true. It's going to have to be way more comprehensive. But can we say that the good, healthy state of the Jewish community now is as a result of World War II and October 7th?
No, I don't think so. I think that, first of all,
no,
the United, I might say the world order that came out of World War II provided a certain amount of stability and certain kinds of values like tolerance. And also, I would say it took the ideas of the Enlightenment, which were really important, and many of those ideas which became part of modernizing Jewish thinking. And it was an era of enlightenment. And I'm worried that we're losing some of these Enlightenment values because it took centuries, took millennia to get to the Enlightenment for humans and also for Jews, and who absorbed those ideas. We absorbed those ideas. I wasn't alive then. The Jews alive then absorbed those ideas into Judaism and brought Judaism to kind of this, and this is a miraculous thing, into the modern era. And I feel like we're losing. We as a society, we as Jews, we as humans, are forgetting how much work went into all the pain and horrible things that happened that went into getting to the Enlightenment. And we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that. And the Holocaust and World War II, there was stuff already happening. So what's happening now, our world order that we had for a number of years, was not just shaped by World War II. It was shaped by the century beforehand as well.
No, there's no question. I think, look, what we're trying to find, part of the exploration that we've done is to find some cause and effect, right? Like we said, we live in a closed system. There are forces operating. Some are more apparent. You see them, you can touch them, you can feel the effect of gravity and electricity. If someone pushing you, you feel that. But there are more subtle things at work as well, which we cannot see. And we know medicine works with a lot of different forces that I cannot see or feel or perceive. And yet here they are, right? We're making use of them. So we're trying to look at this whole spectrum, as you said, even in an individual, that spectrum of the Jewish evolution in its entirety. And we're trying to find how one thing gives birth to another. Like you said, all the horrible things. I would agree and say the horrible things are what gave birth to some great things. Pain leads to the, birth is not an easy thing. You're a woman, you know better than me. Birth is not a walk in the park. There's a lot of forces involved on the fetus, in the woman. It's a result of extreme pressure, and that brings forth new life. So we see all history of the Jewish people as this series of cause and consequences. And by the way, October 6th, Holocaust may be a big event and very far, but October 6th was right here before us. The state of animosity between the Jews, that level of hate, almost to the point of explosion, even from forget anything, subtle or spiritual, or just the mere fact that Jews were at each other's necks. The guys were sitting there in the tunnels, just waiting for the right moment to, So, how can we say that our disunity is not somehow has to do with the response that we get from the world? Now,
there was a very brief moment of unity within the Jewish community, and it was very brief in the United States. And, I went to Israel somewhat time, a year later, and interviewed 75 people. And
Good.
I found very, very different points of view about October 7th.
I'm sure.
Different people had drawn very different lessons from the same thing. And they were sure that everybody else had drawn the same lessons. And it was amazing.
Confirmation bias. So
I just want to say something, though, that I know that you're looking at cause and effect, but as a daughter of a scientist, and, there's also correlation. And
yes.
You can't always, there's a lot of confusion about what's cause and effect and correlation. We have to be very careful about how we approach these things.
We agree. By the way, there's a whole book that we
Judea Pearl's book, The Book of Why?
No, actually, it's called Jewish Choice. The Jewish Choice, and it's a very comprehensive research, maybe 650 different citations. And we're lucky that Jews have a recorded history of 3,000 years, that at some point you could say, boy, there are a lot of correlations here, or there's maybe something at work. Okay, so now, again, it's subtle. It's hard to sometimes see, and it's maybe even harder to say with certainty, because no one is able to conduct an experiment that long. But the facts, again, are hard to ignore. When you look at every time we talked about the temple, you're like, oh, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the unfounded hatred. It's always like there was this big clash and then a big explosion, big clash, big explosion. And what we're trying to ask is, are we able as people? We started this conversation with your beautiful explanation of what Jewish, these two forces in Jewishness, which to us represent one picture, right? A nation that can hold on to two opposing forces, or a person that can hold on to two opposing views. That was a good, for me, definition of a Jew, as good as any that we've heard here, and we're asking, are we able to tolerate that those very strong forces that are pushing us apart? When you were visiting Israel, when you're talking to these 75 Israelis, for example, did you feel that there was something that's binding them together? Is there?
No, I did not. When I was in Israel and I interviewed 75 people, I felt like I was interviewing people from very different worlds, even though they may have spoken and they weren't easily categorized. It wasn't like, one half of them were religious, one of them was secular, one half was right wing or Likud, and one half was some other party. It was really across the board. And but the thing that I found is that what really divided them was the lessons that came out of October 7th, which was really, and that's a great question. Like, how, if you have Jews and they're like everyone else, why do they have, and many of them are secular and many of them are in Orthodox, but they're and even then there's no one category. How can we have one point of view?
There's a human phenomena, like, for example, in soccer, or like football, they call it. So in England, Manchester United, even within the Manchester United versus Manchester City is a big rivalry. And then forget about Arsenal and all the other different teams there. But when it's the World Cup and England is playing Spain, then everyone in England, doesn't matter if they're from the opposing cities during the season, now they're all towards the same thing. So if there is a common goal that we all share, then we're able to, if there's something that's bigger than, I think it's just a natural force. It's something in nature that if there's some bigger thing that we all share, we're all willing to go for it. And not that we're overlooking the differences, but how many thousands of movies probably where like the knucklehead on the knucklehead on the side who, was good for nothing. All of a sudden at the end, he found the key to open up the secret chamber, right? So everybody is part of it. The question we come back to again is, what could be the common goal of the Jewish people? What can we hold as our goal that's big enough to include all of us and give us a shining light forward?
The wisdom to find wisdom. I mean, I'm always looking for wisdom in the Jewish tradition, from the Jewish tradition that is meaningful for today. And, but that's kind of a lifelong thing, and none of this is simple. And I think it's wonderful. I'm glad that the two of you are on this journey to answer that question. I wish you all the luck in the world.
No, well, first of all, we wish all of us the luck in the world. And the reason is that, we're quite confident because when we put together, as I said, historic patterns, which you can say maybe they're correlations, even though they're repeating hundreds of times, let's say correlation. Then you have words from Jewish sages, some very wise people, right? People who have laid the groundwork for so many leaps in human thought, right? And in law and in science and in culture and you name it, and humanities. So when they talk about it as well, and then when you look at how networks are built in nature, and humanity is a network, we're a network, a human body is a network, the internet is a network, we all obey the same rules of the network. So when you put all those things together, the picture kind of doesn't lie. It's like, you have to find.
Be very careful of that. I mean, what do you mean? I grew up, I'm the daughter of a scientist, and as a political scientist, and I spent quite a bit of time, you make theories. And the most important thing is when you make a theory, you got to be able to unmake that theory. You have to find the holes in that theory. And so when we're coming up with these big ideas and these big constructions, that's wonderful. And we might learn something from them. And that's why we do it. But at the same time, we can't get too caught up in them. And what does happen is when people create theories, they also can turn into conspiracy theories. And to be very careful of that as well. Because, when you see grand schemes in history, all of our minds, our human minds, want to find patterns in history and in humanity and in behavior.
Not only want to find them, they're capable of finding patterns.
Well, yes, we're capable of finding patterns.
And there's also patterns in nature that we can't deny. Like if we decide that gravity is not important because we have a theory about it or something, it's going to be a very difficult life.
Yes, I agree. Our minds are built to create patterns, and we do find patterns, but we're always revising those patterns. We're always learning more about patterns.
Yes.
And we need to. And so we can't get stuck in a pattern. And what we see here, and this is how conspiracy theories grow, is people see patterns, they find patterns, and they make decisions, and they understand something based on too small of a amount of material. How about that? Content.
Right.
But
that's not the case here.
We as humans, and here I'm going to sound, we are constantly coming up with patterns, but we have to constantly understand that we're going to see new patterns and that we have to keep looking at it. And our job, and patterns are creating basically hypotheses and theories. As one of our jobs as humans is to question those patterns also. So we got to be very careful about discerning patterns.
I'll give you that. I'm just first of all, I'm just posing the idea to you because everything you said, we agree with. Good. The subset here is not small. 3,000 years of recorded history is no small. It's not the pattern of the last 2 years. We're talking about 3,000 years of recorded history.
But how do you know the recorded history is even
Oh, no.
Of course, reality. I mean, remember, recorded history doesn't include, the recorded Jewish history doesn't include most of the story of women. It doesn't include so many different stories.
There is an explanation for it, and it's not a historical, cultural, all those things. There's something else entirely at work here. And maybe I'll just give a clue that if we look at, I don't even know if I should open it up because it's a whole other world. My point is that, yes, you're right.
It's the same. Hope if we have a chance to talk in the future, we can
talk about this next time. How about that?
Yes. So
Let's do that.
Fine. We'll do that. I'll put a note in there, and we can open it up because I feel like there's a lot because you have so much knowledge, and so it's easy to go into all kinds of different. As you said, you live in different bubbles, and easy to go from bubble to bubble. We're trying to find
conversations are wide-ranging and
right, but remember, in the Jew function, we're trying to find a solution to anti-Semitism because, frankly, we're sick and tired of it. And we didn't ask you, we asked you if you think there's a world without anti-Semitism, and you said yes, but we didn't ask you exactly how to get there. Like, what do we have to do now? If someone is just listening, and you can talk to Jewish people all over who are listening to this, and I'm focusing on Jews. Let's focus on Jews. Forget about the rest for a second, right? Just let's. What would you tell them? Like, how do I, besides not panicking, this I got, but besides that, what can you tell them? What is the thing that can carry us out of this thing? And not just to say, well, this has to change and the world has to change and the president, but something between us that we can maybe do to rise from that phenomenon.
I think I said it. I think at practicing at home, being calm, and also listening to others within our own community, and remembering empathy, and doing all this with awareness and staying informed with trustworthy sources. And I want to say that Moment Magazine is one of those places. And we're not just a magazine. We have incredible newsletters. We have incredible programs that are free, virtual programs, Moment Live programs, and we spend a lot of time curating them in a very thoughtful way. And part of what we have to do as human beings is curate what content we're getting, what we're reading, what we're thinking. And that's one of the things that Moment and editors can do for you, which I think is important. So finding places that are really trustworthy, and it's very hard. It's very hard to find. It's very hard to navigate the information world today. It's hard to navigate the world, period. And so that's a challenge for each person, every single one of us, that we have to do that on our own. And then let's also continue to work for a better world. How do we do that is a very, very important question. I know a lot of people who are very involved politically on one side or the other. They feel like that's a very important place for them to be right now. Question yourself, question your own ideas, question where you got them from. I have to do that every single day. I have to think about that. We all do. Humility. Humility is really important. We live in a world of narcissism, and staying humble is incredibly important.
Beautiful message. Nadine, before we close, I put a little quote in the chat. We ask our guests to read a quote from the sources. This one is from Or Einaim. If you'll do us the honor, I think it's kind of apropos to what we discussed today. That would be nice. It's in the chat, in the Zoom chat.
What do we want? What I just followed. What do you want this for the?
If you could do us the honor and read the quote.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, out loud.
Indeed, when all the disputes are elevated to the root of the source, to the world of unity, unity is formed over the names of the people of Israel. Mayor Anayim.
Thank you so much. Nadine, wow, you opened up so many different bubbles for us. So I think we'll have to talk again. There's just no way around it. But the next time we'll dive into some very specific questions. I think we can start right where we left off. We want to make this world a better place. how do we do it? How do we deal with what's happening, what's separating us? Because we feel it's important that we figure it out, at least between us first, before we even, look outside of ourselves. So we'll turn to your advice. I hope sooner than later. Everyone, please, you'll have links below the video to Moment Magazine, and there are some amazing stories there. I hope you follow, like, and subscribe to the Jew Function and leave a comment, because that's where these important conversations are happening about these topics, and I hope it added a little value to your day and helped you, not panic today, at least in the face of the crazy world. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Nadine.
Seth, have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you soon.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.